All right, welcome back. And thank you, guys. Thank you to my team for doing that. Thank you for your messages. I'm grateful to God for another year. And I'm looking forward to what the next chapter, would be like. It's been so amazing. The last chapter has been so amazing. So I'm looking forward to what the next chapter will bring. But I hope it's blessings, good fortune, love, and most importantly, that Nigeria will be better than what it is today. That is my wish and my prayer. Thank you all again for those messages. Favor, you said Woman of Steel, making me sound like Superman. There's a movie called Man of Steel. So, Superwoman. Okay, I take all that in. Thank you, guys. All right, now let's talk about the interview for today. That's Nigeria's economy and civilization. Dr. Obadiah Mailaifa is joining me right now via Zoom. We also have Skype. Don't know, a lot of people use Zoom now than Skype. Dr. Obadiah Mailaifa is a development economist. He's also a former deputy governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Dr. Mailaifa, welcome to the program. It's nice seeing you again.
Thank you so very much, Nancy. This is your day, Happy birthday to you. I've known you, Nancy, over the years, a woman of substance, a woman of intellect, an Amazon of the media, a woman of virtue, a woman of intellect, a devoted mother, devoted husband, a successful professional, and a princess of Anioma Kingdom. They are my people also. So congratulations, happy birthday. Nancy, you know that the best is yet to be. You have so much more ahead of you to do. And I only wish you the very, very best.
Thank you.
And the Lord continue to bless you and all your loved ones.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Mailaifa. I appreciate your message this morning. Thank you for the prayers and thank you for that. Thank you very much. I take all that in. Whatever that comes in for me today, I'm taking all that in. Like they say, with my full chest.
Shalom.
Those that watch that will understand what I'm saying. All right.
Shalom.
Yeah, let's get down to business. Doctor, I saw your article, at least in various newspapers. You write for various newspapers in Nigeria, and your article is Debt and Civilization. In fact, I had to print that out, and I have it here. Let me start by asking.
Thank you for reading it.
Let me start by asking you, for those of you that are economists and development economists at that, define what debt is to perhaps children that are home right now on holiday that are interested, that watch this program. In simple terms, what is debt? D-E-B-T, pronounced as debt, not debt. Debt. What is a debt?
Yes. Yes, debt is simply any credit that you owe to another person or a bank or an organization. It's an IOU, something that has to be paid off in the future, normally at a given tenor and at a given rate of interest. So that is what it is. That is what a debt is. And countries owe debts all the time. They owe debts to companies, they owe debts to organizations, they even owe debts to individuals. When you buy treasury bills from the central bank or you buy FGN bonds, you are actually lending your own money to the government at a fixed rate of interest to be paid into the future. It can be for 1 year, it can be for 3 months, it can be for 6 months. In some cases, countries even rent up to 30 years. That's how it works. And most countries have one form of debt or the other. It depends on the size. Some countries have debt that is less than 20%. If you have debt less than 20% of your GDP, it's considered almost, not much debt at all. But some countries owe more than their GDP. The United States owes more than its GDP. Countries like Japan, over 200%, debt to GDP. Italy, Spain, and so on. So it all varies from country to country. depending on their needs, depending on their circumstances. And this phenomenon of debt has actually existed since ancient times. It's not now that it started. Right from Roman times, the Roman Empire was built on a lot of debt as well. They could, borrow from rich people to finance wars and conquests. And it's even argued that the Roman Empire collapsed eventually because they overstretched themselves. They won too many territories that they could not govern administratively because they needed it was so costly. And then they had borrowed a lot of money. Paying back that money became a problem. So eventually the Roman Empire became insolvent. So debt is very important to human civilization. When done well, it is very useful. It provides liquidity for countries to execute what they need and then to pay back later. Many of the succeeding kings of England borrowed money from very rich families, invariably Jewish families, like the Rothschild family and the rest. They made immense wealth. They lent money to Napoleon Bonaparte of France. They lent to Chancellor, the great Iron Chancellor of Germany at that time, and many others. So in order to, execute national projects and, and for survival. And often they had to pay back. When the loans were modest and the interests were reasonable, they had no problems paying back. And in fact, they used the money well, invested it, and the economy grew and so on. But when it's done wrongly and you overborrow, it reaches a point where if you can't pay, then your capacity to even borrow in future becomes much more expensive. And before you know it, the country goes into insolvency. So debt is very important for all countries.
So that's, must a country borrow? All the countries in the world, do they borrow? And I know why I'm asking that question. That's the A part of the question. The B part of the question is, have we seen many countries succeed as a result of borrowing, as a result of using debt judiciously?
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely. Many of the projects by the new American Republic, right from the late 18th century, many of the projects were based on taking loans. JP Morgan became the biggest financier in the world. He was lending to America, both for war and for peaceful infrastructure projects. And that was at the foundation of the growth of the United States as an industrial power. Japan also borrowed a lot during its industrializing period, especially from 1866, after the Meiji Restoration in Japan. During the process of industrialization, you had these huge conglomerates. They were called the Zaibatsu in Japan. And the Zaibatsu were large conglomerates. They were in the automobile industry, they were in electronics, they were in aviation, in shipbuilding, and the rest of it. They also borrowed substantially to the Japanese state. And that helped, in the development of Japan and the growth of the economy of Japan. And another good example is South Korea. South Korea borrowed a lot, but they made sure that they borrowed in such a way that they could pay back. And they used the money strictly for industrial projects. And that really helped. Today, Korea is an advanced country, industrial technological state. In fact, in certain areas, it's even ahead of the United States, especially in areas such as IT. There are entire cities that are they have electronics, Wi-Fi access, 5G, and they're doing extremely well in terms of, new technologies and the rest of it. And borrowing, together with development assistance, soft loans as well as hard loans, mainly from the United States, were very crucial to the industrialization of South Korea. Yeah. So in these instances, debt has been useful. And for countries, for businesses as well. I mean, Africa's richest man, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, a friend of mine from Sierra Leone, told me that we were colleagues at the African Development Bank. He was my senior colleague, and he told me, you know, that some of these Nigerian business people, they had difficulty borrowing from Britain, Europe, and so on. So they would come to the African Development Bank. So, you know, especially not necessarily Aliko Dangote, but our friend in, you know, who owns Globe, you know, Adenuga, you know. The first loan he got was from the African Development Bank. And when nobody else would give him any loan, even Nigerian commercial banks refused to give him. But this friend of mine called Sekou Cissé from Sierra Leone, he later became the governor of the Bank of Sierra Leone. He said, look, he just took the risk and decided to give this man a small loan, you know, reasonably substantial loan. And that loan helped him to set up his oil business. From oil, he went into banking. From banking, he went into telecoms, and he hasn't looked back. He's a multi-billionaire. So, you know, even our richest business people have learned the wisdom of using other people's money. It is said that the best business people use other people's money. Hoard your own money, conserve your own money, but use other people's money smartly in order to become wealthy. And, you know, for places like Abajana Cement, Aliko Dangote borrowed heavily, but he made sure you're smart enough. He paid up before the loan was due to mature. He paid it up front. And so they were very impressed, and they'd be happy to loan you even more. And the same he has done for his refinery in Ekpe, in Lagos, outside Lagos. And so if you are smart enough as a business person or as government, you borrow and you use it wisely on projects that have a guaranteed return on investment. That is the secret.
So, Doctor, should I infer from your article that as your businesses that are smart, countries that are smart, their civilization have been built on the premise of borrowing, on the premise of debt? Because even you took us back to history in this article. The Roman Empire, you cited quite a lot of examples. So for you to be civilized, even as a country, you must borrow. You must, you know, have debt, perhaps even huge amounts of debt. Because when I took a look at the countries with the highest debt to GDP ratio, about 3 or 4 of them are the most powerful nations in the world, including US, Japan, the UK, Canada, and all of that. They do have highest debt to GDP ratio. So does Nigeria's civilization hinge on this 33 trillion naira debts, which we have hanging over us right now?
Well, Nancy, let me correct an impression. My article is about debt and civilization. And my message is that debt is a part of our civilization. There are good aspects, and there are bad aspects of debt. So we should concentrate on, you know, exploiting the good aspects of debt. It doesn't follow logically, therefore, that all civilized, advanced countries are also heavily indebted countries. No, that's not the message. The message is simply that debt is very central to all civilizations, including our own, and that is good debt. Bad debt is not. And let's be careful, because somebody said that imitation is suicide. The fact that America does it and gets away with it, that doesn't mean that if we do it, we're going to get away with it. Don't forget that American dollar is the world reserve currency. In a manner of speaking, America is the central bank of the whole world, the Federal Reserve. So if they are 150%, have a 150% debt to GDP ratio, in principle, because the dollar is the world currency, they can literally print more dollars and service their debt with it. They could do that in theory, but it would ultimately be suicidal, because then inflation will catch up, it will spiral out of control, and the value of the currency will come to nothing. So they are very careful not to overdo it. But we can't do what America does, literally, and get away with it, because the Naira is not a global reserve currency. It is a soft currency rather than a hard currency. And in fact, the value has been going down dramatically, even last 2 weeks when CBN announced, that it was moving from the Bureau de Change, BDCs, to the commercial banks to deal in foreign currency, or central bank money. So we have to be careful here, because if we borrow out of proportion and we go into profligacy, we may end up in a situation where, in fact, the value of our currency will continue to go down. And when it goes down, we shall have balance of payments problems. And when we have balance of payments problems, creditors will downgrade our value. You have Fitch and all the other international ratings agencies. It is their ratings that allow creditors to assess how much interest they can give us. The Bible says that to him more is given, more will be added. And to whom there is less, even the less he has will be taken away from him. It sounds very harsh, but in fact, it is very true of the theory of international global finance, that the more creditworthy you are, the more you get loans at the chip. And the less creditworthy you are, the more you pay. So that's the way it is. So yes, debt is very central to civilization, but my key message is that the smartest countries, the smartest leaders are very careful how they borrow. They borrow only for projects that have a calculated, guaranteed return on investments, projects that can pay their way and keep the country profitable. So we should borrow for smart reasons, not for foolish reasons, because that too can happen, where people borrow for any number of things, and then even when they borrow, they don't use that very well. They waste the money, and then they have to pay back. They leave the burden to their children and grandchildren to come and foot the bills. Now, that is not good enough. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, there is a trend that suggests there's a lot of profligacy in the debt and loan business right now.
Doctor, our debt at 33 trillion naira, as released by the DMO, the Debt Management Office, is our debt too much?
Sure.
At 33 trillion naira? And I know why I'm asking that question. Is it too much at 33 trillion naira? If you take a look at South Africa, which is the most advanced economy on the African continent, the debt to GDP is over 70%. So Nigeria's debt at 33 trillion naira, is it too much? Some people will be like, okay, Nancy, even the nominal term, which you're saying now, is even too much, 33 trillion naira. And I said earlier, when I started, that this administration came in with a debt profile of 12 trillion naira. Now it's 33 trillion naira. So is it too much? Considering a lot of things have happened in the last 6 years. Yes,
it depends on the capacity to pay back. A lot of people measure capacity to pay back by two indices. The first one is the debt to GDP ratio, which for us is now around 35%. And in 2015, it was actually just 10%. 2014, rather, it was just 10%. We were paying only 500 billion to service our debt. But by today, it has risen from 10% of GDP to 35% of GDP. I know that some international financial institutions, like IMF and World Bank, I say, well, the most comfortable threshold is 40% of GDP. The other index that is used is revenue to debt service. How much out of your revenue as a percentage do you pay for debt service? And in Nigeria, it has risen from 15% now to something like this year is going to be at about 92%. But that is worrisome. That is where it gets to be a problem. And our debt today is about $87 billion. And you know, if we recall that by 2005, our debt stood at $36 billion, which we owe to the Paris Club. And we were paying something like $5 billion. At the time, it was a heavy burden on our revenue. So President Olusegun Obasanjo, in all his wisdom, decided to engage with the Paris Club of Creditors through his then very able Minister of Planning and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. And through hard and bitter negotiations, we were able to reach a debt settlement with the Paris Club, whereby we would pay $20 billion cash, and out of that, they will forgive us the remainder 16%, $16 billion. And it worked very well. We started again by 2006 on a clean slate. They made us commit to using anything we're saving from debt servicing to now for poverty alleviation and the rest of it. So the MDG's office was set up to oversee that particular role. But one thing that Nigerians forgot is that we had to sign at the Paris Club that we shall never come back again for debt forgiveness. This time they're not going to listen to us. That is what, and we agreed to that.
So it was signed then. So we can't go back.
Careful. It was 36 billion then. For us, it was a heavy burden. I know the economy has grown, but today it is 33 trillion naira, about $87 billion. Now it's huge. The good aspect is that at that time, all our debts were virtually foreign. Today, less than half is foreign. So what we owe in dollars is less than what we owe in naira. So technically, we can print more naira and service some of our local debt. But we have to do it in a way that, of course, doesn't destroy the value of the currency. But for the dollars, we have to earn every hard dollar in order to use it to service our debt, because they will not accept naira. And because that is the case, we have to be very careful. And Nancy, what worries me also is that some of the loans we are taking are not being properly used. And I'll give only one example, the Mambila Hydro project. It's worth about $3 billion. And up to this point, this was almost 4 years ago, up to this very point, I'm told no brick and mortar have been laid for that project. In fact, one company in France has taken us to court, I hear. I don't know what happened to that case. I haven't heard about it recently, but they even took us for breach of contract. So my advice is, number one, think very hard before you borrow. And if you must borrow at all, borrow only for projects that have a calculated, guaranteed return on investments. And thirdly, when you borrow and you are investing in these projects, put in place an implementation framework that is thorough, rigorous, and professional. As president, fly yourself, even by helicopter, to those mountains and see what is happening with your koro eyes. If the project is not taken off, call the people in charge and, deal with them, or let them return the money. So be very tough and rigorous when it comes to projects, especially with borrowed money from outside, because this is not free money. It's not AWOF money. is money we must pay back. So these are the things we need to put in place. And, when people like John Magufuli of Tanzania realized some of these issues, he decided not to take loans from the Chinese. They were giving him 10 billion loans, and they put a small writing as collateral that they will take over the port of Dar es Salaam, the only port in the country. They will take it. I think there's another one in Dodoma, but the one in Dar es Salaam, they take it over for 99 years. The president said, no, this kind Koni, he's not going to accept it. So he refused. He turned it down. And instead, he went back into himself. He examined all the things they need to save and cut the cost of government. He decided nobody should travel abroad. If you are sick, let's stay in this country and die. If we can't use our hospitals to cure ourselves. He cut back unnecessary travels by politicians and civil servants. And in fact, the money he saved was enough to build so many infrastructures in Tanzania. And Tanzania had one of the rapid rates of growth on the continent, in fact, if not the world. Just by saving money, just by discipline, just by fiscal prudence, they were able to save a lot. So we need to learn those lessons. I think that we're too extravagant as a government. The cost of government is way too high in this country. Everything small will rush abroad. Everything small will rush to Dubai.
Doctor,
let's wonder the foreign exchange is being frittered away.
Doctor,
it will affect the value and the standing of the naira.
Doctor, let's
when that happens, it eats into your reserves. And when it eats into your reserves, you have more balance of payments problems. And when you have more balance of payments, you have to go and borrow or, or find yourself in austerity and the rest of it. So
Doctor, sorry I have to come in here. Let's take a look.
Prudence. The most dangerous thing that
Doctor, I hope you can hear
me. And if you like, to a civilization, is to A, live beyond its means, and then to incur huge debt, which they then proceed to either steal or waste away in fake projects that will never see the light of day. We've done that too many times, and it is terrible.
Okay, Doctor,
Nancy,
yes.
I don't think you were born then, but during the Civil War,
no, I wasn't born then.
Nigeria did not borrow $1. That was a terrible civil war, in which millions died. Chief Obafemi Awolowo was finance minister at that time, under Yakubu Gowon, General. They finished that war. Nigeria did not borrow $1 from anybody. The whole reconstruction of the East, Nigeria did not borrow. But guess what? In May 2015, when our president flew for the first time to Washington, D.C., the first thing he did was to sign a loan, an IDA World Bank loan of $1.3 billion, ostensibly for reconstruction of the Northeast. You can imagine. Boko Haram, a bunch of thugs and hooligans. You are borrowing so much money to fight them. When that big civil war we fought, we had the sense not to borrow even $1. So what is wrong with us, Nancy? What is wrong with us today? Is it that we don't have the same level of intellect like the great Chief Obafemi Awolowo, or we don't have his discipline, or his sagacity, or his prudence together with General Gowon, who would never, never, never steal $1 of government money? Never, not $1. Those two people, not even $1 would they steal of government money. They were God-fearing. They used the resources that they had. And that time, Nigeria didn't have much oil, We didn't have much money from oil. Because the real oil boom came after 1970, after the Civil War had ended. So we need to learn from wise people, like Obafemi Awolowo, like General Gowon, and the rest of them, so that we don't go aboro. Unoka was this character in Things Fall Apart, who was always borrowing. And he won't go to the farm, because of hangover, he will borrow, hold a party with his friends, they will drink palm wine, they will party. Then, Next day, he's too drunk to go to work, to the farm. All his colleagues have gone to their own farms. So poverty took over this man, and he used to use chalk to write the names of the people he borrowed from. Obierika, Okonko, Unofia. So when you come and you are number 20, he will say, look, Obierika number 1 didn't come to ask for his money. You are coming here. Please go away and leave me alone. But of course, he died a poverty-stricken man. His wife was a poverty-stricken widow. His children were vagabonds. This is what happens to any country where their leaders don't have anything to think about other than borrow, 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 borrow. You end up in poverty and dishonor.
Okay, Doctor,
That is the truth.
Yeah.
What happened to Unoka and things fall apart?
Doctor,
this is the same thing that
Doctor,
to a country that continues to borrow and borrow and borrow.
Doctor,
yes,
okay,
Nancy.
Let's talk about the way out. Is there a way out for us, even at this point? You said a lot. I tried to come in there, but I don't know if you heard me. You said a lot, and let's see what we can. Yes, let's see what we can do now between till the time we end the interview. Is there a way out for us? I was at an event, was it last month in June, the World Bank launch of the Nigeria Development Update, and I listened to Dr. Ben Akabueze, the DG of the Budget Office.
Yes.
When he was asked, okay, even the DMO chief was there, our debt is too much. The states also have their own debt. Lagos State, of course, has so much debt hanging on his head. The DG Budget Office, they say, even if we cut cost of governance, as everybody is saying, we do this, it will still not be enough. That's actually what he implied at that meeting. So what is the alternative for us at this point? Because we have a very bad fiscal position. We are positioned badly fiscally.
Next year, Nancy, I think it's been projected according to medium-term framework, the medium-term expenditure framework for 2022-2024. Next year, we're going to spend 3.6 trillion on debt service obligations alone. And the following year, 2023, we're going to spend 4.9 trillion. I envisage a possibility of saving 500 billion just from frivolous things.
Yes.
Do we need 7 presidential jets? I don't know how many there are now. We don't need more than 1. To be honest with you, we don't need more than 1. We don't need more than 1. Britain, do you know Britain doesn't have a presidential jet? Britain is a $2 trillion economy. The economy of Britain is 4 times bigger than ours. Actually, 3 trillion, so they were 6 times bigger than ours. The Queen doesn't have a presidential jet. The Prime Minister doesn't have a presidential jet. What makes us feel that we must have a presidential jet? But okay, so if we insist we must have it because we don't have a national carrier, because British Airways, that is the one they use. They will clean some of the front first-class cabinet for the Queen, Her Majesty to use, or the Prime Minister and so on. But so if we must have, we can have one, that we can maintain it very well, look after it very well, you know, and then you cut the cost of government. Why must we go every now and then for treatment with the whole entourage? If it is in a civilized country, people will insist on knowing how much is being used on each of those medical travels. I'm not sympathetic, I'm very sympathetic. Anybody can get sick, don't get me wrong. But I can assure you as president, if inshallah God takes me to that seat one day, and we're not politicking here, I will never go outside this country for treatment. Let us stay here and die. The option is to build world-class hospitals here. If we are going to even fly in a world-renowned surgeon, we fly him in, let him come and operate and go. There's a famous Egyptian heart surgeon, Professor Magdi Yaqub. They used to fly him all over with a private jet to go and do operations and come back. Why not? So we create a world-class hospital here for the treatment of all our top people. If they need a doctor or group of doctors, we can fly them in, they come and treat, we keep them in hotels, they come and treat, and they go. You see, by running every now and then outside, people are in India, people are in this place, people are there, people are in Germany. If malaria catch them in Germany, you know, you are making scorn, you are making your country into a real third world country. They will never respect you. Never, never. So let's cut our code according to our size. That is one aspect. Let us live within our means as a country. Avoid this waste and this, you know, exorbitant lifestyle. If you do that, I guarantee you, you will spend, you can save $500 billion, 500 billion naira in a year. You can save that amount of money. If you put all these travels, all these things, you know, these entourages, huge entourages here and there, if you reduce that, and then cut your coat according to your size. Don't live a bogus lifestyle. And then, you know, find ways of saving costs and make sure the projects, you know, are not overbloated. Most of our projects are overbloated. The Chinese built a railway for Kenya. They also built a railway for Ethiopia. Do you know that the cost of those railways, the Nigerian one is almost 4 times that size? You know, those projects, almost 4 times on average. So why do you overbloat these projects like that? This is money going down the drain. And the Chinese don't care. Okay, this is how much you say you can do it. Fine, we'll do it for you. Kickbacks under the table will follow. To me, the most evil thing and the most immoral thing anybody can do is to take bribe over a loan. How? It's a loan, and they are giving you bribes over a loan. It's been going on, Nancy. I don't have physical evidence, but you can tell anecdotally. If the same project costs 1 billion in Kenya, and the same project, which is Nigeria is an African country, the same project costs you $3 billion, what does that tell you?
Okay.
It tells you that something is going wrong somewhere. And then the third aspect, which is within our rights, is to restructure the loans.
Okay.
We can restructure these loans, restructure the tenor, restructure even the terms of repayment. That is within our right to give ourselves enough fiscal space
to be able to
But
repay.
in the long term is let us cut down the appetite for borrowing. And if we must borrow at all, let it be only for projects that have guaranteed return on
and let us also be transparent.
And then keep it within boundaries. Keep it within reason.
Okay.
And
Doctor, I'm afraid that's the much we can take.
More than outside. Yes.
Doctor, can you hear me? That's the much we can take because we've come to the end of the program. But your insights, I think, well articulated. Borrow for constructive projects, but transparent. Now we're having a problem of 33 trillion naira loan, borrowed funds. We've got to restructure. So thank you very much, Doctor, for your insights today.
Thank you. I wish I was there for the party tonight, but please keep my jollof rice for when I come.
No problem, Doctor. No problem. No problem.
And you enjoy the rest of your day, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doctor. I've been speaking with Dr. Obadiah Mailaifa. He's a former Deputy Governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He's also a development economist. We've been looking at debt, Nigeria's economy, and indeed civilization. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. I am Nancy Nnaji. Be the best you can be and be that change that you want to see. Bye now.